Before we start, the name is at the top right of the screen. Cute Village is an underdeveloped area where poor people without imperial citizenship live and where our female protagonist currently lives. It was a day like any other. She was hungry and was on way home after buying bread to last for a few days. Quite by chance, she came face to face with that child. She asked him what he was doing here. He had black jet hair and golden eyes. The light was so strong, and the moment she saw it, a person who looked exactly like that came to her mind. She asked him if he had anywhere to go and did he want to come to her house. She offered him her hand. Slowly he raised his hand and held hers. At that point, she was reaching out to the person who would later kill her. The mindset of a fallen saint, it was a romance novel she made with her younger brother and read it until it was worn out. Because every single sentence and setting they created together was precious. The main character is Lucille, a saint trapped in a temple. They set the story in a war to get Lucille out of the temple and placed the Holy Grail at the center to make Lucille stand out even more. The perfect stage was created and 3 men fell in love with the heroine. The main male protagonist, the Crown Prince Adrian Bridium, the sad sub-male Zyle Lockhart, and the main villain of this novel and her favorite character, son of the Demon King Raven North. He is a cruel, heartless, and beautiful villain who goes crazy for revenge on everyone in the world. The reason he took the path of a villain was an extra girl in the background. When a rebellion broke out in the north, family and Raven wandered the streets. The girl tricks Raven into taking him to her house, and then sells him to a servant dealer. Raven is then taken to the Imperial Palace, where the North family covets his power. He went through all sorts of hardships for 10 years and then finally managed to escape one day. By then, things have already gone downhill and he returns home. After facing his father, who had become a demon king due to the Emperor, he defeats him with his own hands and becomes a villain crazy about revenge. When our female protagonist came to her senses, she found out she had been possessed by Evelyn, the extra girl who had turned Raven into a villain. Our female lead brings Raven into her house and tells him to sit comfortably. She is glad he is more obedient than she thought. Her gaze lights up as it rests on his face, and she muses that perhaps it's due to his reputed good looks, but even though he has a scruffy and weary expression, he is pretty. He keeps glaring at her. She guesses it's probably because he couldn't eat properly since he was in such a hurry to run away. She knows first of all she has to feed him to let his guard down. She offers him some bread and asks him if he would like to have some of this. She also informs him he would be staying at her house for a while and what should she call him. At first he gives her a one-word reply, Raven, but then reconsiders. He repeats that his name is Raven and inquires about hers. She looks at his eyes and wonders, even though he is still a child, his eyes are fierce. She tells him to call her Evelyn. When she thinks about the original, she knows she should not be involved with Raven, but she can't leave him alone because at this point in the story, Raven is poisoned and being chased by traitors to his family. All at once, his muscles tense up and his eyes narrow as though he were experiencing pain. She realizes it looks like he's in a lot of pain. Her eyes fill with pity as she looks at him, a child with no place to stay or anything to eat comfortably. She recognizes this is partly because of her who created that setting. However, she makes a split-second decision that she is going to take responsibility and help Raven. After he has finished the bread, she tells him the only thing she had prepared was bread and asks him if it was okay. He nods, which brings a smile on her face as she's glad he liked it. All of a sudden, she becomes vigilant. Her muscles tighten, her gaze alert, and she looks taken aback. She stands up abruptly, telling him there's a room with a bed over there, and he should go and take rest first. He looks suspicious and asks suddenly. She tells him, well, she just remembered some urgent business, and it will only take a moment. She tells him sorry and shoves him into the room. Now pressed against the locked door, she thinks to herself it's starting again. As she opens the door, her eyes widen in shock, and she calls out Raven's name in a scream. She hurries to his side, kneeling down next to him. She asks if he's all right. Raven groans in pain, his hand pressed firmly against his chest. She realizes his condition is more serious than she thought. There are also symptoms of paralysis, and in this condition, it would be difficult to move his body. She needs to put him to bed first. Later, after laying him in bed, she wipes him with a handkerchief and notices that he has a high fever. Raven groans as he experiences a nightmare, his features drawn and tense. Evelyn tells him he needs to wake up. In his nightmare, Raven returns from a walk through the mansion and spots Farrell. Smiling, he rushes toward him and asks why he's alone. He wonders where his father is. Suddenly, he stops abruptly when he's reminded that Farrell has poisoned the head of the family, and now the head of family is in critical condition. Raven asks Farrell in his mind, what did he do? It looks like the Northern family information has leaked out and Farrell was a person sent by the Imperial family. Raven recalls how the others told him Farrell sold information about the Northern family to the Imperial family. But he was still in denial. He asked them what they were talking about. Farrell would never do that. Farrell pushed Raven hard and bid him goodbye. After that, Raven was locked in a cell. He still could not believe Farrell sold him to a servant dealer. He wanted to ask him if he really betrayed him and his father, the two of them. He held his chest and groaned in pain when he tried to use his power. It was hard to use his strength because of the magic seal placed on him. He knew he had to run away from there quickly, otherwise next he would get a real servant seal. After he escaped, he somehow ended up in the cute village. He told himself he won't trust anyone again. He was also aware the poison used by the traders had spread too much throughout his body. But he knew he could not pass out in a place like this. That was the time when he crossed paths with Evelyn, who asked him what he was doing in this place. He realized she looked about his age. She offered him her hand and suggested if he had nowhere to go, he could go to her house. He remembered that he promised himself he would not trust anyone. He slowly opens his eyes and gets up, realizing it was a dream. When he looks up, he finds Evelyn sleeping. But because of his movements, she suddenly wakes up and realizes he's awake. She admits she was startled because he suddenly passed out and had a bad fever, but now she's glad he looks better. She asks him if he's okay now, right, and asks him to let her take a look, but he frowns and says what? She lets him know if he frowns like that she will misunderstand and still think he's in pain. He has a handsome face, so he should smile a little. He bites his lip, his eyes narrowed as he asks her what is she smiling about all of a sudden. What does it mean to be handsome? Her smile grows as she responds, that is what she is saying. Wouldn't it be better if they smiled and talked to each other? She admits from the first time she saw him, she thought his eye color was very unique and pretty. It's much prettier when she looks up close. She also confesses it's been a long time since she has seen someone face to face and talk to them like this. So she asks him, cannot he be a little gentler? He looks stunned and does not know how to answer that. She continues that since they will keep seeing each other for a while, how about she calls him Ray? And he can call her Belle. How does that sound? He looks away and mutters to do whatever she wants. She then calls him Ray and tells him to get some rest. He's not feeling well and letting him know she will finish some housework and will come back later. When she shuts the door, she thinks it seems like his guard has been relaxed to some extent and believes the rest will work out naturally as they stay together in this house. She takes advantage of the fact that Raven is resting now and decides to write down everything she remembers about the original, as it would be difficult if she suddenly couldn't remember something when she really needed it, and if she gives an answer that does not match Evelyn memories before she was possessed, she might look suspicious. She believes Ray's condition will improve a lot in a few days and is determined to take good care of him and send him back and cure her illness. She also knows when the war starts in the Empire, she has to go into exile to the kingdoms of Elkasa or Ager, because those two countries were safe from the fire of the Imperial War. She thinks the urgent thing right now is to earn living expenses right away. Evelyn's grandmother, the only person who cared for her, has passed away. The money her grandmother left for her is slowly running out. Suddenly, an idea lights up in her mind, and she thinks that this is right. There's a way to cure her illness while earning living expenses. weeds growing in the outskirts of the forest of shadow, which carries the energy of chaos. Evelyn Crad disease can be cured by consuming it. By consuming Bard while it's warm, the full-scale treatment process will begin. If she consumes it consistently, at some point, she will vomit blood, as it is an after effect that prevents her voice from coming out. From then on, it's a sign to stop consuming Bard, and the treatment ends with drinking the highest quality of holy water. Bard is a fairly common weed in this neighborhood, but she doesn't even have money to buy it. However, there's someone in this town who has an overflowing stock of Bard, so she should at least take a look. She believes there's a lot of potential if she uses the original story that she remembers. She smiles to herself while writing them down. Raven is standing at the threshold looking at her with his fierce golden eyes. Next morning she arrives at the house and asks if someone is here. She thinks the only low-level potion maker in this village lives in this house. First of all, she needs to get a job here and earn living expenses. She wonders would not it be possible to ask for a bit of supply of Bard as well. When she feels her plan is perfect, she decides to knock at the door, but just as she's about to knock on the door, it swings open abruptly, causing her hair to be blown back by the gust of wind. An older man stands before her, scowling and demanding to know who she is. He mumbles under his breath that a damn human who dares to disturb his sleep. Now that she sees him, she realizes it might not be an easy task after all. A nervous Evelyn thinks he looks even more formidable than she expected. The man is Jade, the only potion maker in the End Village. For someone like her who has no money or job, there's no better way to make a living than working with him. She plasters a smile on her face as she greets him and wishes him a good day. She gets straight to the point, asking him if he might need an assistant. He narrows his eyes at her and clenches his jaw. He asks what does she mean? An assistant out of the blue. He does not need anything like that. She gasps because he is rejecting her so harshly. Just as he is about to shut the door, she places her hand on it and requests him to wait a minute. She assures him only the hourly wage is fine and she is not like the average assistants. She thinks to herself she cannot come all this way and go back empty-handed. He stops and listens to her when she says she knows a secret potion recipe. She thinks to herself that is it. He is reacting. If a person succeeds in developing their own special potion recipe, they can be recognized as an intermediate creator in one go. So for her, a low-level creator, her offer is quite tempting. He asks her what kind of recipe is it. He needs to hear it first. She thinks of course she knew he would be interested. She tells him it's a potion that can dye hair rainbow colors. His eyes wide now, she thinks speechless isn't he? It's her privilege to know that this is trendy in the capital these days. He suddenly screams at her, calling her a naughty brat. What is she talking about? He asks her if she thinks a brat like her knows a potion of the same level as the polymorph spell. She is surprised and thinks if she put that setting in. He wants her to get out of here if she has nothing to do and shuts the door in her face. She did not expect this situation, and now she has no choice but to use her fallback plan. Although she failed to get a job and a bard, there should not be only bards but also other useful herbs here. She searches through a box since it is a box where failed research products are kept. She guesses it's okay for her to take a little bit from here after all. It's something they put out to be thrown away anyway. She picks several herbs which seem quite useful to her. She believes if she takes them and makes something out of it, she would be able to make some money somehow. A perplexed Jade looks at her from the window. Evelyn, before leaving the house, had told Raven that she was going out and she would be back. She also warned him that no matter who knocked at the door, he was supposed to pretend he wasn't there and not open the door. He asked her why. Should she not greet guests? She had instead asked him if he knew a place called Athos Upper Side. He replied he knew it well. Why? She told him one of the merchants from there came to her house sometimes and he could be after him. He does not know what kind of bad things he could do to him if he found him. She patted him on the head, telling him to keep what she said in mind and guard the house well. He brushed her off, telling her he is not a child. And so a few letters have passed. Raven is worried because it's already getting dark. Why is she not back? he wonders where she went by herself. At the very least, she should tell him where she is going and when she will be back, not even considering the person waiting. He thinks to himself, is he really just waiting quietly here for a suspicious girl he barely knows? He recalls her smiling and thinks the only reason could be because she kept saying stupid things, that's why he let his guard down. There's no other reason. Once again, a sudden jolt of pain courses through his body. He groans in pain because it hurts. He looks up and finds Evelyn. She tells him she is back, smiling at him. She asks if he was okay by himself. He narrows his eyes at her and demands where did she go. She tells him she brought some herbs. It looks like he has once all over his body, he needs to get treated. His face suddenly flushes red as he asks, what does she mean, all over his body? He wonders if she took off his clothes while he was passed out. She claims she knows what he's thinking, but it is not like that. She admits she was just getting worried because he kept making groaning noises while she was not looking, and it seemed like he had not leaned his back against the chair even once. She states his back is hurt, right? He thought she was just naive and cheerful, but she does have quite sharp edges. She gets settled on the chair and looks at him, asking him what he's doing. He needs to come here and sit down and take off his shirt for a moment. He looks panicked and asks her again if she really wants him to take off his shirt. She teases him, come on, she's curious about guys' bodies too, but then she tells him it will fester if she does not treat it, so he should hurry up. He frowns at her, still not willing to take it off. She checks his back. It is messy as expected. She realizes he has been enduring this despite the state of his back. He probably got these wounds when he was sold into the servant market. She silently whispers he must have been in a lot of pain, but he just glares at her in response. Suddenly, the window shatters and glass shards scatter everywhere. He shields her and asks if she's all right. She looks at him stunned, and he repeats his question. She finally snaps out of it and tells him she's fine. Raven's eyes fall on the stone that has been used to break the window. He wonders if those are the traitors after him, or maybe the servants' traitors. He immediately rushes and picks up the knife. Evelyn grabs his arm and tells him to calm down. She tells him she will deal with them. As she opens the door and steps outside, the first thing she hears is a barrage of curses directed at her. She recognizes the children cursing at her from Evelyn's memories. They always tormented her. She confronts them that they have come all the way to the house, but won't come any closer. Jack says she wants them to come to her, but they will be cursed if they do that. Because of her unusual hair color, Evelyn was rejected even in the outskirts of the village. She takes a deep breath and thinks even if they are acting like that, they are just kids. She just needs to scare them a little, and they will run away. She picks up a rock thrown her way and says should she show them what a real curse is. Color drains from their faces. They look like they have seen a ghost. They then run for their dear lives, screaming on the top of their lungs. She just sticks out their tongue at them in return, unimpressed that they're running away so quickly like that. When she looks away, Raven is looking at her from the window. She smiles at Ray and says she was able to handle it right. He thinks about why she is so calm, as if she's used to this kind of situation. The treatment method using Bard in her illness has one precaution, which is that until the efficacy of bleeding and voice cessation is demonstrated, Bard intake should not be stopped. As her illness called Crad worsens over time, she reluctantly decided to consume Bard for treatment. But consuming this tasteless soup made only from this herb, every meal feels maddening. The taste aside, the Bard she brought back then is also running out, which is a problem. She also reveals she visited Sir Jade for several more days, but he did not accept her as his disciple. The only hopeful thing is that today he popped up from the window to give her an errand. She thinks if she keeps going like this, she will just end up being an errant servant, not a disciple. Jack and Syrah hide behind the bushes and look at her through the window. She's lost in her thoughts as she looks out from the window, contemplating, does she really have no choice but to go to the forest and fetch the Bard herself? She is also not sure if it is okay for her to go into that poisonous forest with illness in her body. Jack and Syrah glare at her, realizing she seems to be completely lost in her thoughts, and that is the best time for them to throw the rocks at her. She picks up a rock as she mutters she leaves their village and calls her a witch. She's prepared to throw the rock at her, but someone suddenly grabs her arm to stop her. She looks up at the person restraining her. She tells him she doesn't want to miss this chance, and what's with him suddenly popping out like this and interrupting her. Raven glares at her and lets her know he will let it slide just this once, but not next time, so she should leave quickly when he's being nice. He also warns her he will kill her next time if she tries to do such a stunt again. After that, both Jack and her run away. Evelyn is watching the show from the window. She is impressed he handled it alone and that they are persistent. He then turns his accusing eyes towards her and points out all she does is the smart talking alone. He wants to know why has she been letting those eyesores go on like this, and suggests wouldn't it be better to just kill them. She flinches because of his response and thinks as expected of a budding villain. No wonder why his future looks bleak, and he still has a long way to go. Worry etches across her face when she thinks she doesn't have time to waste worrying like that, and she needs to recover her health as soon as possible so she can focus on helping Raven. He asks her why she keeps looking at the forest. He points out she was so distracted by the forest that she did not even notice when those troublemakers were approaching earlier. He mumbles under his breath that if that's the case, it's the forest the only thing on her mind, and he never trusted those people at the end of the village. She asks him if he's implying that those people from the end of the village were talking about her, and if he thinks that she would leave him here alone and go to the forest. He knows there's nothing he cannot do, but lets her know he has no intention of obediently following her. After a moment of silence, she finally admits the reason she was looking at the forest is because of an herb called bard. She further reveals it is the herb that she used to boil and eat in every meal. It may seem ordinary, but it's quite important to her as a food source. He remembers she was having soup earlier and calling it so bland. He wondered then why she still had it. She confesses that she has to keep eating it because of the circumstances and she doesn't have money to buy food. She does not think she can find a job right away. That is why she is considering going into the forest to gather that herb herself. She messes up his hair, telling him there's no need for him to make that worried expression. He brushes her hand away and glares at her. He claims he never made such an expression. She smiles at him in response. She claims he's so cute. Sometimes when she sees him, his thoughts seem to veer off in a strange direction, don't they? He reminds her he told her not to treat him like a child. At the end of the village square, Syrah is throwing tantrums, demanding to know what is up with the black-haired guy. She states Evelyn is acting weird lately too. She asks Jake if he thinks she has changed. He replies yes, her aura has changed. She believes she's probably just putting on a show to impress that guy, and they're probably still flirting together. She calls them a disgusting couple and promises she won't let them get away with it. Meanwhile, in the North family Xuan, the Northern Imperial physician asks Luke, the Northern Knight Commander, if he has found Lord Soga. Luke replies no, but at least he has not been captured by the Imperial Palace. Xuan points out that the royal family must be desperately searching for him as well. Luke agrees, and they must be the first one to find him. He knows although the Empire is searching all the border villages, but the time is turning out like this. He believes there is no way he would have left quietly, seeing that the traces of magic are cut off. He must have sealed his magic to avoid leaving any traces. If they can weed out the spies within the family and deal with the traitors, he will surely bring the prince back with his hands. Luke then asks him how is the Lord. Xuan replies still no signs of recovery. He also adds they cannot determine the type of poison the assassin used, however, it seems to be similar to what the former head of the family suffered from a long time ago. She too was poisoned at a royal banquet. Luke asks could it be the filthy hands of the palace that once again did this. Xuan answers yes, they are even more sinister and cunning than he expected. The Emperor of the Empire, Argos, asks his man, is he claiming that they are still unable to find him? The man, trembling in fear, apologizes to him and asks him for his mercy. But he has none to give. He states useless and raises his sword and slays him. He then asks his other men what about the ones planted in the northern family. They reply only 2 are reachable, and it seems the Norths have found someone from their side. His Majesty comments he thought the North family were just brainless people, but it seems not. He cannot believe they already found that many of their people. He says, well, those guys are probably useless now, so he should deal with them. He then adds no matter what, they should bring the child to him before the North does. He orders if he cannot detect his image, then he should detect blood, but he needs him at any cost. Jade's diary, at 15 on a certain day in May, he asked Evelyn to deal with cabbage leaves, Utea pollen and popcorn, and just like before, perfectly clean and tidy. It does look very skilled. May 5th at 21, the cheeky little girl did everything he ordered again today, and without fail he headed to the place where he gathered the remaining ingredients. It seems like people still firmly believe that the place is a garbage dump, but that's not the extent of it. He threw the juice of today's trimmed pepper fruit into a barrel that looks as old as possible. As expected, the little girl recognized the valuable item and picked it up right away. On May 5th, Tennyson, the damn kid, came again in the morning. She excitedly told him that a mixture of Istra and Komora fruits showed hemostatic efficacy. On May 5th at 4 hemostatic agents were made according to the child's instruction and achieved better results than before. He wrote in his diary, why do those children end up in such a hopeless village? He guesses he should at least bring some silver coins to the little girl. Evelyn smiles, thinking Jade has opened up a little to her a bit now. Moreover, there are a lot of useful things piled up in the garbage dump, and this time she even got money. He gives her a silver coin and orders her to go down to the village and buy 2 books on herbalism and use the remaining money to buy whatever she wants. She thinks even though he is a bit tricky, he's a really nice person, except he still doesn't accept her as his assistant. With the extra money, she bought a book for Raven to read. She hopes that he will like it. Suddenly, her attention is catched by the people in front of her who are talking about her. She immediately hides in the corner from them. They discuss the painkillers she uses and question if it's time for the supply to run out. They are also aware that she's running low on funds and wonder how anyone can cope with an incurable disease without painkillers. Evelyn reveals they are the people from the servant market. She realizes by white they are referring to her. In this village, Evelyn was ostracized by the villagers because of her unusual appearance as a half-elf, but ironically, because of her unusual appearance, servant traders were eagerly targeting her. The more unique a servant's appearance is, the more valuable they become. She thinks it has been a while since she last saw them, and now that she's seeing them again, she's starting to get angry. She feels like she will have to be careful around the village for the time being. They also say this time she will have no choice but to accept their offer and decide to visit her next week again. She realizes they're coming to her house next week. In the original, Evelyn didn't give up easily, and she just sold Raven to the servant trader instead of herself. She tells herself not to be scared, it is okay. There's still time until next week. She's determined not to let things go the way they happened in the original and is resolute in her decision to help Raven. She thinks first of all, they should quickly run away from this place. At that moment, she bumps into someone. It is Syrah, who lashes out at her for not looking straight ahead. She apologizes and wants to make sure she is not hurt. She then excuses herself, saying that she has urgent work and she will leave first. Syrah glares at her while Jack checks up on her. On her way, she mumbles under her breath that she cannot waste her time like this while servant traders are targeting her. It seems difficult to get barred from Mr. Jade right now, so she has to go to the forest to get what she needs for the final stage of the treatment. With new resolve, she tells herself to go without fear. In the forest, she looks around for signs. There is a sign that points out ahead, and she follows the direction. Syrah, who is hiding behind the bushes, calls her stupid and thinks she's acting so proud, but let's see how it goes. Thanks to Mr. Jed's work during this period, she is able to identify a few herbs. She thinks even the air is better than she imagined, and things will get better once they start to blend in as bards. However, something feels strange to her. She realizes the grass isn't something that grows here. She remembers she clearly followed the signs, then why? On the other hand, Jack tells Syrah that he already changed the sign picture again. She tells him good job, and anyway, she's a girl she does not like. She asks him if he saw her carrying a book during the day. Upon his acknowledgement, she says she is sure she did it on purpose to show off. Even if they want to learn to read, they can't, and she shows off as a citizen who knows how to read. She decides she would tell the adults in an hour that she went into the dangerous forests. Jack does not look convinced, but listens to her anyway. As they turn to leave, they are stopped by Raven, who asks them where did she go. Syrah tells him she heard she's going to the forest and also calls her annoying. She further adds since she went into the sleeping fog, she is sure she's asleep by now. He glares at them and warns them to stay here and wait, otherwise he won't let them go if they are not here when he comes back. Jack trembles and calls for Syrah, who tells him she thinks they are in big trouble. Raven rushes into the forest. He thinks it is a big deal. He needs to find her quickly. Although known to the public as simple sleep fog, actually that fog does not exert much power during the day, but at night even the knights cannot deal with it. This is the fog emitted by the plant bullies. He thinks the sun will set completely soon, so why did she go into the forest where plant bullies is at a time like this? He hurts his hand and it starts bleeding, and he thinks he tried so much to avoid using this method. He curses under his breath and runs after her into the forest while calling for her. Raven recalls when he was young, his father telling him that even if he masters the family's magic, he must never use it. But he asked his father why and expressed his wish that he also wanted to become a powerful mage, so why can't he use it? His father replied because that magic is so powerful that it shortens the caster's lifespan. He then asked Raven if he remembered their ancestor, the apostate Jinhyun. He was a person from another world. He was a wielder of forbidden magic, and he was also a magecraft like Raven. He gained the power that encompassed worlds. His father told him people like him are capable of mastering it, and they gain power that encompasses words, but in the end they are also consumed by it. His father told him to never forget the more he uses blood magic, the closer he comes to becoming a demon lord. Back in the present, Raven is aware he must not use this power, but there's no other way to save Evelyn. He runs deeper into the forest and finally finds Evelyn, who is surprised to see him and asks him how did he come here. But he calls her a fool and shouts at her to look behind her. When she does, her eyes widen in disbelief. He calls her by the nickname she had given herself, Belle, and rushes towards her. The sentence describes someone slowly waking up to the sound of rain and realizing they fell asleep. As she gradually regains consciousness to the gentle sound of rain, she wonders at what point she had fallen asleep. She remembers everything happened so quickly that she couldn't see it clearly, but it felt like something attacked her. Suddenly, her eyes widen when she remembers Raven saved her. She looks up and finds herself in the embrace of Raven, who is holding her gently. She giggles as she looks deep into his golden eyes, running her fingers through his hair as she reminds him he has finally addressed her by her name. This time, instead of dismissing her, he leans into her touch, his gaze uncharacteristically soft as he asks, how can she joke even in this situation? He then groans in pain. She asks him what is wrong. She looks ahead, where all the monsters are melting away by his magic. She wonders if this is his power. Raven is aware since he used that power, his traces will inevitably be left here too. He had planned to hide here until all the infiltrations in the family were dealt with. He says out aloud it's not so bad that it turned out like this. He has no regrets. Later, both Jack and Syrah are on their knees as he interrogates them, telling them if they both have excuses then go ahead and try it. Syrah still has the audacity to ask what they did so wrong to deserve this. Raven, who seems done with them, turns to Evelyn and asks her if this should just kill them. She is quick to tell him no, and then confronts Syrah herself, asking her if she doesn't know what she did wrong. Syrah explodes, reminding her all that happened to her was that she fell asleep for a moment, and why she's making such a fuss when she is not even hurt. She steps forward threateningly, but Jack pulls her back. She tells her she's pretty and talented and she knows how to read. She can leave the village and earn money, then why does she feel so wronged by spending one night in the forest? What did she do wrong? Evelyn replies if it wasn't for Raven, she would have almost died there. They are both taken aback by this revelation. She informs them there are dangerous creatures in the forest, and they exhale a sleep-inducing mist. If Raven was just a little late, she would have been asleep and become prey for those creatures, even if they claim not to have known. Do they really think they are not at fault at all? Sarah lowers her head, looking ashamed and guilty. She claims she is not lying, she did not know that, and she just wanted to tease her a bit. She thought it would not be a dangerous place. Jack also claims he never wished for her death. Evelyn thinks they are not lying, seeing their reactions. She rubs her head tiredly and exclaims now that they both know their mistake, that's all that matters, but if they still pull a stunt like this again, she won't stay silent. She then tells them it is late, they should go home now. They leave looking ashamed. Suddenly, she stumbles, but Raven swiftly moves to her side, catching her in his arms and asking if she's all right. She embraces him tightly, expressing her relief. She admits the truth is she was extremely scared. He calls her Belle and assures her it is okay. Evelyn feels ashamed. She promised herself she would take good care of Raven, but instead ended up needing his help. What a fool she is. She drapes her arms around his neck and hugs him tightly. She expresses her gratitude, thanking him for coming to her rescue. He returns her hug and tells her it is fine. That night, when Evelyn is in her bed, she thinks the situation was so dire that she didn't have time to think deeply, but since Raven used magic, there must be his traces left in the forest. She knows with pursuers on their tail, she needs to erase those magical traces as quickly as possible. She thinks Ray went so far as to use magecraft to save her. She cannot just sit back and watch. An idea comes in her mind, but she wonders if she should make use of that. The next day, they are by the waterfall. She's sitting on a stone when she reminds him. Didn't she tell him to come here? She wears a look of playful mischief. Evelyn knows there is no way to erase the trace of the magician itself now, so it would be best to buy time until Ray recovers and returns to the North State. This is the method she came up with, a potion to summon monsters. If she uses this to summon a monster to the place where traces of magic remain, it can look like Raven used his powers to save himself from the monster. Eventually, it can instill psychic belief that he lost his life. Even if it is a dirty trick, if the other person is still looking for Raven, it is necessary. However, she doesn't know if she will still be able to fake it. So she got ready to leave for the forest this morning. She lied to Raven that she is going to the lake near the forest to do her laundry. He got mad at her and questioned if she was thinking about going to the forest again after being put through such a situation. She handed over the basket to him and said if she wasn't to go alone, then he could lead the way, she would go with him. She never imagined that Raven would follow along like this. Her initial plan was to go alone because if she used that kind of potion in front of Ray, it's obvious that he will look at her very suspiciously. She looked at him and wondered if she could do it naturally without Ray finding out. She decided to give it a try. Back in the present, she tells him what he's doing there. She told him to come in too. He looks a bit shy as he reminds her she was here to do the laundry. She replies she is going to do the laundry too. It was hard to climb up, so they should take a break. He reminds her they are not kids. She thinks it is a strategy to do it quickly when he's distracted by her water play. She then thinks obviously they are still kids. She makes a sad face and tells him not to say that and demands him to come in here and play with him. She whines that it is not fun if she plays alone. He flushes red, but still agrees to do it. He slowly comes into the water, still looking hesitant. She asks him what's the matter? Did he get bitten somewhere? He replies he's okay. He was a little surprised as the water was cooler than he expected. Evelyn thinks awa, what a cute reason. She smiles thinking of him as a cat and wonders, is this why there is no cat in the zodiac sign? Suddenly she splashes him with water playfully and smiles, teasing him if it's cold. He splashes the water too, asking if she wants to experience the same thing. She giggles in return. After they are done with the water play, drenched, they sit together on a rock. Evelyn forgot to do what she decided because she got distracted playing with Ray, who seemed so excited. She looks up at him and smiles a little, thinking well it was a good thing because Ray was happy. She then gasps in surprise, telling Ray his hair has become shiny and darker than usual. She wonders if it is because he got wet. It is so pretty. He asks her what she means pretty. She pokes him in the cheek, telling him it is a sincere compliment and not something to be embarrassed about. Suddenly, he states her hair also shines when it gets wet, causing her to pause in Surfside. She smiles and looks down at her hair. She asks him if she should cut it and sell it later. He flinches in surprise, asking her what she's talking about. Why is she gonna sell it? She tells him her hair grows back anyway. Now that she thinks about it, she thinks she could make some money since her hair has a unique color. She further adds maybe it could really help with living. She thinks it would be so nice then, as she would be able to buy Raven some nice clothes. Raven mutters softly that his family has a great deal of money enough for her, but he speaks so quietly that she doesn't even hear him. She is busy thinking about what kind of clothes would look good on him. He rubs his face embarrassed and states that he said nothing. She believes since he is very good looking he will look good no matter what he wears. Her gaze then falls on him. She wonders why did his face suddenly turn red. Did he catch a cold from playing in the water for too long? Anyway, the sun is going to set soon, so she has to do that thing before it's too late. She suddenly gasps. Oh her God, did she take the potion by mistake? She asks herself, what should she do? He questions what she means by potion. She tells him these are the potions she brought because those people said they were going to throw it away. She tells him she forgot that she put it in her clothes pocket and accidentally brought it with her. She picks one of them and tells him this is an omnivorous monster. Her hand slips, causing the potion to spill into the lake along with the other potions and the basket of clothes. She gives him a side eye and wonders if he noticed it. He tells her to quickly get out of the water. She says yes. She thinks it must be a perfect performance since he fell for it. He asks her why she brought such a dangerous potion. She lies that she didn't see it properly because she was in such a hurry to get it. She reminds him it could be dangerous, so they should leave and go back. The clothes that fell along the potions are the clothes Ray was wearing the first time they met, clothes that are stained with his blood. She knows soon the monster will flock and leave its mark. If only that happens, there will be confusion among the Imperial family who are looking for Ray. In the Imperial Palace, His Majesty's man informs him that he found it, Raven North, he found traces of that kid. His Majesty says he finally got something. The man says yes, among the demonic beasts, there were clothes with blood on, and given the circumstances it seems very likely that he died after being attacked by a monster. His Majesty seems to think about it. The next day, as Evelyn is drying the dishes, she steals a glance at Raven who is sitting and reading a book. She wonders how much longer can Ray and she be together. It's already been a few months since he came here and soon the North family search parties will also find this place. She knew from the start he would leave someday, but it's a shame because she feels like there's really not much time left. She guesses she has become more attached to him than she thought during that time. She feels it would be nice if she could at least give him a meaningful gift before he leaves. She wonders what would be good. There's a harsh knock at the door and someone telling her to open the door. She suddenly swivels around when she hears that voice. Her eyes narrowed and alert. He is the man from the servant market. She requests Raven would he please stay in the room for a moment and not make a sound. He asks her why. She says actually someone is supposed to come visit today and he is not a very welcoming guest. The man screams he knows she is inside and to open it quickly. She says to Raven just by listening that he can understand why she is hesitant, right? So he should hurry up and go inside. He says he understands and reluctantly enters the room and locks it. She sighs in relief since Ray is hidden now. Next she opens the door so fast that it hits the man in the nose. She screams at the man to get out and that he's making too much noise. Does he think this is his house? The man holds his nose, asking what she's doing and calling her a crazy woman. He shows her a painkiller and says can she see what's in his hand here. Acting like this won't work well for her. She realizes it's the only narcotic painkiller that alleviates the pain of her disease. It is an expensive item that cannot even be bought by selling a house, and it's a dangerous item that could lead to addiction if not careful. With no other option, the original Evelyn knew she had to depend on the drug, even as she realized she was becoming addicted to it, so she ended up choosing yet another path to death, but there's someone else who deserves to be punished for that. She tells him she is not buying it. She told him last time she doesn't have money. She thinks since she is now in her place, everything will change from now on. He tells her she cannot buy it at this price from another place. She tells him to forget it, she will make it and eat it herself from now on. So if he has a manufacturing kit, he should sell it instead. He comments, "Come on, she doesn't think potions making is child's play, does she?" She asks him if he is going to sell the manufacturing kit or not. He tells her she will regret it and throws another package towards her. She says good. A sudden sound comes from the room causing Evelyn to worry. The man notices it too and asks what it is. He clearly heard a noise. She lies to him that maybe something fell over because of the wind and pushes him away. He says whatever, fine, and to tell him if she changed her mind. She suddenly dashes to the room and bursts through the door, finding Ray in pain on the floor. She asks him what is going on. She kneels down next to him and pulls him into her lap, asking him if he's okay. What is all this? She glares at the mark on his chest. It is the servant mark. Sometimes when they capture a rare servant that is difficult to manage, they stamp a mark of the free trading group before stamping the real servant mark. This is done to prevent the servant from running away before the actual transaction. It is said that servants marked with this pattern have seizures when there is a servant trader with a brand nearby. She already knew Raven had escaped from the servant quarters, but she never imagined he would also have been branded. He fixes her with a warning glaze and wants her not to look, and he is not a servant. Raven believes the one who came looking for her outside was definitely a servant trader. He thinks there should not be a reason for them to come looking like this. He looks at her suspiciously and wonders if it could be her. But then he dismisses that thought because she would not do that. However, he cannot help but think that if she finds out he's being chased by the servant traders, she will surely despise him. She suddenly curses them, causing him to be stunned. She exclaims they are not satisfied with making his back like this, so they have to do things like that as well. She then tells him to hold on for a bit. She will get some medicine. He grabs her hand and asks her if she knew that he escaped from the servant market. She lets him know, even if she knows it does not change anything. She's not going to send him to those people. He looks surprised. A few days later, she looks at his bandaged body and asks how his body is. He assures her it is not bad. She wants to talk about that mark, but he cuts her off, saying it is okay, it will naturally disappear after a while. She sighs in relief. He then asks her since when did she know that he escaped from the servant market. She tells him not to misunderstand, they didn't come here to look for him, but for her. Those men sometimes come to her to sell painkillers and all sorts of things. She grabs his hand with both of hers and states she also knew that the servant markets were looking for him from the pattern, so if she had known that the person would be one of them, she would have prevented him from approaching the house in the first place. He tells her he has been lying down all of this time and he has been feeling stuffy, so he's going to go outside and stretch his legs for a bit. She asks suddenly, he should not overdo it yet. He responds he will just loosen up a bit and come back, so she doesn't need to worry. Just as he reaches for the door, he looks back and says thank you. She's taken back at first, but then recovers and smiles. Outside, as he's doing stretches, he cannot help but keep thinking about Ray and her smiles. A blush slowly spreads across his cheeks, but then his mind drifts to the man from the servant market coming earlier. The top servant dealer of Athos.